Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the March 23rd meeting of the Water and Sewer Department to order. Let's all stand and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think we should start off with superintendent updates.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I'm going to jump around a little bit. Been a busy couple of weeks. Technicians continue to work with multiple different fire service companies performing the quarterly sprinkler flow tests. These are the tests that a few we were unaware of in the past, which were problematic. Having staff out there has definitely changed the tides. Systems are being flushed much better instead of being shut down. It's leading to less failures on backflow devices on these same systems. And we're getting accurate data for the water that's being used for these tests. We do have a few other tests scheduled in town. The smaller tests are posted on the town websites and on the Norton Media channel. They are not required to be posted at this time in the Sun Chronicle newspaper, which is a small change from the larger tests that we perform, which would be a hydrant flow test or a fire pump test. The cost, which would have to then be passed on to the building owner, is substantial for the ad in the paper, and where we haven't had any incidences at all with the lower flows. We feel pretty confident we can leave it that way. If something changes, it'll be addressed in the future. Thursday, March 18th, we had our first full fire hydrant flow test of the year. That was for 184 Mansfield Ave. Water pressure and quality was monitored before, during, and after the test, and again, there were no issues. We do have our first fire sprinkler pump test scheduled for March 30th. This is on South Washington Street. That'll be an 8 a.m. start. And that one will be posted as the hydrant test was in the Sun Chronicle paper, the Norton Media channel, and it'll also be on the town websites. Thankfully, again, with the implementation of the treatment plant, we've been able to perform these tests during the day, which is something we couldn't even dreamed of, 2 years ago. We'll transition over quickly to tank cleaning. We had divers in same day, last Thursday the 18th. They cleaned and inspected the center elevated tank, and on Friday we moved them over to the 3 million gallon storage facility on Mansfield Ave for cleaning and inspection there. Both tanks will be sampled prior to going back online, and I can update that the center tank was back online Saturday, and the elevated tank, the ground storage tank, was back online today. Both samples came back absent. We'll put back right in service. John and myself continue working with Weston and Sampson on the required vulnerability assessment. Multiple sections have been completed. They've been sent over to Weston and Sampson for their review. That's the assessment is due by June 21. So it is coming up rather quickly, and we're working on that along with the CCR, the ASR, the LRAA, the DVPR, and the manganese reports in our spare time. And we'll jump over to sewer. I have a few items. I know Steve has a couple more. The Howard Street line meter, a few months ago, we had spoken about the concern that our sewer department and I had about the accuracy based on the design of that meter that was installed. We allowed it to remain since we had other meters that were going to be in place, one at 120 West Main and another one that we installed on the school discharge line. Having those meters installed, we were able to verify the accuracy of the Howard Street meter, and as we expected, the accuracy, because of design, is a lot less than we would like to see. So we will be moving forward with a different design for that same location. It'll work with the existing skater, the existing box that's there now. We have 3 quotes that are outdated, so we've requested for updates so we can use that moving forward to really narrow in the cost of that meter. Things may have changed. They're about 6 months old, some are a little older than that.
How much will you need?
Right now, the lowest price on the old quote that we have is $12,000. It's going to be another $45,000.
What size is it?
It's actually not a size. It's ultrasonic. It won't be in the flow where the existing one that's there now is in the flow. We've had problems with it fouling, with debris catching on the meter, as was the concern from day one. And now that we have other meters to work against this one to verify accuracy, it proves that we are not picking up on the smaller flows like we had anticipated would happen in the beginning. I think this meter would be great if the pipe was half full or 3/4 full all the time. I think it would be probably the most accurate meter that you see there, and the constant flow and pressure would keep it clean. It just doesn't fit the design that we have right now in this area.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Are you going to leave the other one in place, or are you just you're going to have dual?
No, I think because of the design, that one's going to have to be removed, because I think that's the area that they project down. There's a sketch that we had drawn up that there'll be a bracket that goes across the manhole off to the side so you can still have access to the pit, and it will shoot down at a dedicated area in the pipe, mm-hmm. which I believe is right where that sound is sitting right now.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that meter will be the most accurate when you have a half full, right? When you have a pipe that's flowing half
full. Are you able to reinstall it, or is it once it's out, it's kind of...
Well, I mean, there was talk about that, about putting it off, to the side, mounted up and out of the way, secure. That, at a later date, we wanted to use both meters in that same pit, right, to verify, super verify accuracy on it. No two meters are ever the same, especially for different types of meters, but it will still narrow down, and you'd have the redundancy.
It feels like in 2 years that you'll have substantially more flow.
There's definitely a possibility that it could be used in the future.
And it on the other hand, it's a tough environment for something to just hang around in. I don't know.
I guess it will be quite a while before you get a significant amount more flow. You're going to have to extend more sewers. You're going to have the pump station at the housing authority pumping now. It already is. But until you really go further down West Main towards the middle school.
All right. So
that's when you'll pick up a lot more of the flow that the station's designed for. Right. So that is, the more I think about it, that is still a ways out.
Yep. Even with the erroneous flows that we see from the schools, we're not seeing a steady enough trend to show accuracy at the lower numbers.
Right. Now, the school is the definition of variable flow.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Especially when it rains.
Yes. We'll jump over saying on sewer. Again, wonderful Thursday to March 18th. We ended up responding to King Philip Road again. Sewer alarms were sounding in the morning. The sewer department responded rather quickly. Actually, they were in the area, and were able to determine that it appeared that there was a clog starting to form. Again, same location as last. We were able to reorganize, move a few people around, get the jetting equipment down there, and get it opened up and jetted out within a very short period of time. There's some questions and concerns about what's going on down there. We think there could be multiple things. We have not set up the time yet to put the camera down. That's going to be our first step. That'll indicate where we go from there. If there is nothing obvious, a root coming through, a bulge in the pipe from a rock shifting when the pipe was installed, we will set up, as we planned to do last year, our high-pressure flush. We've hooked up with multiple backflow devices through the hydrant into the system. We can run 70 psi through that and flush everything out into the wet well down at Winnicott. We did this 2 years ago. We were not able to do it last year with COVID, keeping everybody distant. But it seems every time we've broken up a clog down there, the material is similar. I won't get into heavy description on what you see because everything does go through a grinder pump. We have some assumptions of what is down there. I think the majority of it that's causing the problem appears to be like an eggshell material and grease. Grease seems to be the worst. Even though it's a low flow force main, there is still time to settle. Based on usage, there's a long period of time that it goes where it's just sitting stagnant. With the ground temperatures being fairly cool, that close to the water, we're believing it's allowing that grease to solidify again, which almost acts like a sticky trap. The next things that go down kind of get stuck in that, and so on and so on. So if we don't come up with a solution based on what we see when we camera it, we're going to implement flushing at a more frequent rate. Obviously, sitting with
Where's the grease
everything
coming from?
going
It's
on.
coming from a restaurant?
No, there was no restaurants on that. This is homeowners only down there.
That's just King Philip Road.
Mm-hmm.
Diane.
I knew it.
Diane, she's like, I'll get that, watch this. I want to see the trucks out here. Yeah, it's a dead end, right? It starts at the beginning of King Philip, and then it comes down, and I don't even know that the restaurant there, whatever it is, the chateau is not on.
No, they're up the other end. It's a total separate line. It's not a thing where we're having problems here.
The other way it goes to farm.
Yeah, and you know,
Is it only in the cool temperatures that it coagulates more, or you've seen it in the summertime also?
no, it's been cold temperatures.
All right.
So
So you want to hit it 2 months after, or a month after it gets cold, or every quarter in the cold, I guess, or every month in the cold?
right. So finding the same thing or similar to what we found the last time we had the problem, we actually went down and we handed out some flyers explaining what fog is in the sewer system. You know, fats, oil, and grease. What should and should not be flushed. Just because it goes down the toilet doesn't mean it's really what should go down that toilet. Especially the wet wipes and all that stuff that we're dealing with. They do go through their personal grinder pumps, but again, it's beneficial to them not to put wear and tear on their pumps and have a potential clog on their line by flushing things that really shouldn't be flushed. You know, even though the wipes say flushable, it's really something you don't do. They are extremely strong, and they will clog a pump. We've seen it multiple times on some of our other pumps. You get a few of them wrapped together, you twist it, and it's a rope. It does not break apart, even with mechanical forces on it. So, knock on wood, hopefully we don't see anything down there that's detrimental once we put the camera in.
Is there a couple of pipes that could have bellies, or it's been in long enough so it would have already...
It's settled. It's not level by any means. You know if you know the road structure down there, and it doesn't appear the section that we get to where we are able to remove the air release valve. It's really 3 or 4 feet outside that manhole.
Okay.
We've jetted both ways from multiple different manholes with as long a hose
I
as
would
we
can't
have.
like reach in and smooth it out.
Yeah, you really can't reach in that far, but it'll be an attempt. I mean, with you know, you get there, you start scratching your head.
Right.
You know, you look at what alarms you see going off, and it brings you back to that same basic location. And you know, we've gone the long route before, and we've gone all the way down to the end, pushed everything all the way down.
Right.
You know, you get some resistance coming back because you're not breaking through the clog, even with the pressure jetter. Once you get down to that spot there and you break it through, same thing. It flows like a brand new pipe, like it should.
Yeah. And if there's no sweeps or anything, it all turns in manholes. All right.
Yeah, manholes with air release valves. Being the pressure system, we actually replaced the air release valves on that street a while back because there were some issues with one of the balls was hanging up, internally corroded, based on the age and the environment that it's in. We swapped those out to stainless steel air release valves and PVC fittings.
Yeah.
You know, a little more difficult to take out because of the weight, but longevity-wise, spend the money, do it once.
Right. Stainless is good.
And you know, again, nothing really to point a finger and say this is exactly what caused it, but leading more towards a grease event.
Yeah.
And time.
So when do you plan on flushing that, you think?
Staff. We got one of our employees is out right now on COVID protocol quarantine because of contact with a family member who come in contact with somebody. So we're doing everything we can, obviously, to stay distant and follow CDC guidelines. You know, putting people together. You know, when we know this is a system that's working now, you know, I don't want to say I'm going to take the sit and wait approach. We will get the camera down there. Even if I have to do it myself, I'll go down the manhole and do it. Nothing I'm, you know, afraid of or unaware of. I've done it before, and we'll make sure we get an eye on what's going on. It'll give us a plan. You know, if we're going to have the plan to excavate it, obviously it's going to be an August or September excavation. You know, because it is so wet down there. But I would be very surprised to see pipe in such a short time that it's been in the ground.
Right.
I'm leaning more towards maybe there's roots that have found their way in through a coupling, similar to what you see in a homeowner service. and it's giving it, you know, a little bit of a break spot where you're getting the grease, you're getting the fines, and it's building up over time, and there's not enough pressure with the homeowner pumps. But again, all guesstimates. You know, Howard and myself have gone back and forth, banged our heads, trying to figure out. It just doesn't make sense in that system.
Right.
You know.
Well, you know, the camera is the first step, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully the letters and the additional maintenance will hopefully solve the problem that's there. If we have to excavate, we're not opposed to doing that either. Get that done. We talked about before, when this first clog came up, we thought it was all related to the air release valves, and there is a long distance between two manholes. We really will plan at some point to put a manhole in the middle. Yeah. It'll just aid in cleaning that pipe and give another point for air release. It doesn't appear to be a vacuum problem that's being created, you know, by heavy flow and a no flow and an air release. We've simulated all of those scenarios by manually closing valves, and we spent some time down there after the first event, and we couldn't recreate it by creating a vacuum, so we believe that is off the table as a problem. So it's a head scratcher.
Time will tell.
Time will tell, and the camera will solidify our assumptions, we hope. That's basically what I got on water and sewer. I am going to take a minute, and I know it's premature, but I want to thank you, Luke, for your years of service as a water and sewer commissioner, especially as a chair. It's been a pleasure serving for you for the 2 years or so since I've been here as superintendent, and I'm not sure all the townspeople understand the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes with the entire commission. And, you know, thankless hours that are spent making very difficult decisions to be in everybody's best interest. Gonna miss you. It was great having you.
Thank you. I will miss the friendly faces, and believe it or not, even some of the more volatile meetings are the ones that come to mind. And I can't say it was always enjoyable, but I really enjoyed the group of people, and that's what I will most miss.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Green, for your years of service.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Luke.
That's all I have, sir.
Very good. Moving along, I see the water and sewer main extension by the town of Mansfield. Have you seen the emails from the town of Mansfield? There are a couple of roads over in the Grove section of town.
I know what you're talking about.
Cross over near the
first
the town line and the concrete barrier and the highway separated Mansfield from Norton.
I am privy of what's going on. We'll talk about it, plus I talked about it with the house.
Yes, good. So, what they propose is to extend our water mains are over there. They don't have water mains in that area. They have sewer out there, so they may or may not extend their sewer. I don't think they will, but they asked to have permission to extend the water mains to gain access to vacant lots that they may in the future auction off. And I was just trying to keep everything in comparison to what we've done in the past. If Mansfield does the work, or Mansfield subs out the work, and is worth enough to extend our water mains, I think maybe we waive the connection fee or a tapping fee or whatever in lieu of the pipe and the labor and all that they do to extend our mains, and make the end something that Frank and the water team wants to put hydrants at the end so we can better flush each of those. There's not a lot of pipe. I think a total maybe 100 feet, a couple of different roads, maybe, you know, a couple of sticks of pipe. I guess our main decision is, well, first of all, if we agree that it should happen. I think it's a good thing. If they add more customers, that's okay. And it's kind of a tough little spot over there. Some of the roads end in dirt. It's not easily accessible by what we have. So they want to kind of extend it and make it real. So if we want to do it, I think it's a good thing. And in working closely with the town, with the sewer department, and the Tri-Town agreement, they always seem to be reasonable, not always to our advantage, but it's reasonable. So I think if we let them extend it, it's not a problem. I'd ask for a motion to allow the town of Mansfield. We have.
Kind of sticky for me.
Yeah, we can get around that because if, once we decide to extend the mains, I think, another suggestion or a vote would be to put Frank as the point person going forward. And, he will enforce the rules and regs that we have in place on our existing water mains. And it will probably be a Lopes or a contractor that Mansfield hires, so it is sticky. But as long as, you, being a town Mansfield employee, are not directly involved in inspecting the pipe or whatever, I don't see a huge, conflict. Maybe it's something, going back to my, readings from the state ethics laws, maybe you submit a letter to Mike and say that, I'm aware of the situation, I feel I can be, or whatever you think. If you can be unbiased in observing this or working on that, that's cool. If you think it's a conflict and you want to step back, you can do it, and we'll just make Frank the guy. But I think, again, our day-to-day would be Frank would send people out to inspect, and he's going to run that anyway. But I just see it as something...
And did we talk about a possibility of maybe looping those, or is that out of the realm?
It was not spoken about. I'm not sure who owns the properties up to where the 495 barrier is now, if that's state property there. Most of the water services now are pretty far after the last hydrant. So we definitely want to have the main go down. We want to have a hydrant at the end.
Or like in the spaghetti line?
With the spaghetti line. That's what I was looking at. If we decide to do it, you have to come up with how far beyond the last property line we want. So maybe, just out of practicality, maybe say whatever the last full stick of pipe is. So if they're 10 feet onto the property line with the next to last stick, let them go another 20. And then again, at Frank's discretion, whether it ends up in a driveway or whatnot, you'd like a hydrant, and you locate the hydrant, again, in conjunction with their design engineer. I think Rick Alf has something all, Rick's on it. Yep. Rick is just totally involved. They have stakes out there, and they've done all kinds of work. He's going.
I guess it's well.
So that's how he flies, and it's all right. I think it's an improvement, and we don't want to see a 100-foot spaghetti line have issues later, and then somebody updates the road, and on and on and on. So if we work in conjunction with them, I think it can be...
I personally don't have a problem making a motion. I just want to make sure it's going to hold up and be valid, or...
Yeah, no, I get it. Again, I don't...
That's a good idea for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think it's a win. And they have some vacant land out there, and it's... Frank has told me it's asbestos pipe, so it's not going to be an easy one, but... You'll see, and it may not even be that. We don't know what it is, but
it's undocumented on our paperwork.
That's a good one to say, well, if I know what it is,
Once it's excavated, then you know what you see there.
Yeah.
Our best guess is that it's asbestos cement pipe. It was not part of the Small Cities Grant, which is on the other side, closer to the reservoir. So the assumption would be treat it as asbestos cement, hope for the best.
Right. And has it been problematic in the past? Are there a lot of repairs out there? Or
we have had no issues on that side of the pond.
Okay. So if you want to abstain, that's okay. Just make the motion and...
No, I'll make the motion. The motion to allow Mansfield to upgrade the system by extending it on those roads. I don't really know.
Library. I don't know what the other one.
Roads in question.
Thornton, yeah, very good.
I don't know if it's a area.
I thought it was a area, but that sounds familiar.
Yeah. And Frank has a plan. As per the plan submitted by the town.
Right.
I'm sorry, just for clarification, you talked about, waiving the permit fees because they're doing the upgrade. Once they start building houses out there, those house lots will pay the permit fees?
houses should pay the water capital charge.
Right, okay, so,
Because in my take on it, Mansfield is donating the structure and the labor to waive their, I'm treating it like a developer at this point. So if it's X number of dollars to extend that pipe, we're gonna say the pipe and the labor offsets their,
the main thing, right.
whatever it is, the tapping fee or whatever we charge.
Mhm.
However, when a homeowner, and they're gonna do the laterals and whatnot to each property line, but when the builder of each lot wants to tie into that water service, they definitely have whatever the standard is Norton Water then.
That's for our spec.
And again, that's why it's another upside for us.
Mm-hmm.
No, definitely a major benefit to the town to extend that and the additional hydrants in that area.
Yeah, and then, just a little cleanup, I'd like another motion, if you would, to put Frank as the primary point person on that. Basically just going through the rules and regs and adhering to exactly what is in our existing rules and regs on water installation.
Do we need to motion that, or is that generally what you do?
Because of the, situation where you were in, I think it's advantageous to have him specifically listed. We do this on other projects where he's spending more than his allotment, so like, this is something that he may have to make a decision on, and I don't want him to have to come to you and the seat that will be vacant by me and get in an uncomfortable position. Frank, certainly this is a project well under what he's already done, so I know he'll do it, as the town would want. I just want to specifically empower him to do that.
Well, a motion to, have the superintendent, right, to oversee and have to oversee all the jobs.
I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. And again, I think, that's really what they were looking for, and the specifics, maybe if, with all your acronyms that you've got going on, if you could find, an hour or something to meet Rick out there and just walk through and spray a line on the ground because he's at the point where he needs the distances of pipe extensions for his plan. They'll get the estimates from their people and try to get it moving. So we'll go moving right along to Weston and Sampson. I think I will start with Steve Peterson, please.
All right. You want me to just blend right into the betterment, the 7 o'clock betterment discussion, or
I think
we can come back to that after?
I think the betterment we're going to have to hold because it is a financial and very important one. I think we'll have to hold that to 7 o'clock. So let's just do the sewer update.
Okay.
Unless there isn't that much.
No, there's not, and that's fine. But there is a lot. I have a memo that I want to walk through that it talks about the financing, kind of recaps what we talked about with the treasurer and the accountant and the town manager.
Well, that kind of stuff we can do.
So I think we could get into that, and then the things that we want to talk about voting on, we'll leave for.
Right. I just don't want to do the
7 o'clock. Yeah.
amount of the betterment vote until 7 p.m. We've been
I'll lay out
in the past for that.
Yeah, I can lay out how our recommendations are coming, and then we can go back to it. I guess before I get into that, with regard to Cobb Street, Frank, so this, I told you I'd bring you a hard copy, so I send you the PDF of these. So that's a hard copy of the 75% plans. We'll set up a meeting to talk next week. Whether we need to go out physically and look at it, we'll talk a little, we might be able to do it virtually or just a conference call. Because it's really just talking about wiring and stuff, which, there's not much more to see. We've got pictures of everything. So I'll leave these that way. If we just do a conference call, you'll have a full-size set of plans, so you don't have to call it up on the computer. And that's just so we're advancing. Basically, the replacement of the generator at Cobb Street was the first big-ticket item that had been identified as something that you want to be proactive about, as opposed to waiting for it to become a real issue, based on the age of the generator and the importance of that station, basically, and the lack of time to deal with an emergency. You're done. If something goes wrong out there, then you're in an emergency right away, basically. So that's just an update on Cobb Street. So I put this together. I was gonna I still will email it out, but I'll walk through it, with all of you guys, today. And Harry, you're gonna love this. You can follow along too. I have enough copies for you. So a lot of this is recap, but then it talks about the costs that have been incurred on the West Main Street project, which we've been talking about, the anticipated debt schedule, which we went over in our work session with the town manager, treasurer, and accountant. And then this talks about the proposed financing plan, and it gets into more detail about the betterments, which is what we've focused more on since those meetings in terms of defining some of the things that we need to establish, figure out, so that we can move forward with the assessments. And this memo also, in my mind, serves kind of as the minutes from that meeting that we had, so that we have something documented about the things that were discussed. And I got a few appendices attached to this. So Appendix A is just the agenda that we used when we had that for a previous work session. In terms of, and I'll walk through the memo. I'm not going to read the whole thing. Again, this is for all of you to look at in more detail when on your fun time when you're looking for something to read. Project schedule as an update there. We've been talking about basically final paving is all that's left. At this point, we have a site walk this coming Wednesday with Mass DOT to get a definition on where we're doing lane width versus full width, so we get the final scope of it. And as we've been discussing, there's, for the most part, the trenches all stayed on one side or the other. There are definitely some areas where there's a lot of cross trenches right in a row, and there's also some areas where they creeped out over the middle line just based on necessity of other utilities.
When is that going to be, Kim?
So the site walk with Mass DOT is 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Is that March 31st?
31st.
And we're meeting at the pump station at the Housing Authority, and we're going to walk basically from there down to Fernandez Circle is where the...
We got to be a little quiet looking around there. Take our shoes off.
I asked them to bring their hammer in case we needed to chip anything away.
There you go.
And the intent right now of Rockio is that once they get the full scope of it, which really doesn't matter to them, they either need to do full width or half width, and they're going to hire their sub. So it's a paving contractor that's going to come in and mill 2 inches down and then put the final overlay out there. And the goal is to do that, at least start it and get most of it done April vacation week. So Monday is the holiday of that week, Patriots Day, and then they will work Tuesday through Friday, see how much they can get done. I'm sure it will carry into the next week, and we'll have impacts on the schools. We'll work with them on that. Maybe we do the same thing starting a little later on those points. So we'll talk about, if they can focus.
It's probably in your radar already, but the more communication you have with the schools about what you anticipate, how it's going to be, the better.
Yep.
Because they'll say they were blindsided even though they knew. But, and we've already established that pattern of delaying until, 9 o'clock or something.
Right, when they're
the hour for us construction people, but whatever.
I mean, I would even entertain if Rockio wants to request it, if we just need one more day, continue right into the Saturday.
Oh yeah, that would be optimal.
And so we'll see how that goes. Again, we'll see how much production they can get, how quick they can get it done. So that's the last work that needs to be done.
They can pave at night.
They could, and they're trying to avoid having to do that.
All right.
Yeah. But it can be done.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not like putting the sewer pipe in which they're doing all,
Right. Yeah. Okay, so next bullet, our next heading there, project costs. We haven't incurred any more costs. So at this point, the the project costs remain at about $6.2 million, and we got about $400,000 left with the estimated paving and the associated oversight and police details that go with that, as well as the retainage that's left. There's 1% retainage left on the job. So all that added up, the final project costs about $6.6 million versus the town meeting authorizations of $6.8 million is where we're projected to be now. So a couple $100,000 under the final authorized amount, and that's all summarized in Appendix B, and I'm not going to go through those tables with you right now. Feel free to look at those. If you have any questions, let me know. But that just kind of breaks down in more detail these big, the big picture numbers. So, so you guys have that as some backup. So we talked about the debt schedule at the meeting. That was a big focus of the meeting. There are two borrowings. There's a local borrowing, $355,000. That's actually the second bullet in my memo, but when you read it. And that one was for costs that were not eligible through the SRF loan. Basically, before we went to construction, all the design work and legal consultation at the beginning of the project. So the town has gone, that loan, that borrowing was closed. So the loan was closed and issued. So that borrowing has started as of October 2019. It's a 15-year loan, so it'll go through 2034. It averages out to about $30,000 a year that needs to be paid back. And Rose, you've seen that. This is the second year you're seeing that on the budget. So the big loan is the SRF loan. They're actually closing that loan as of the end of April. At this point, projecting out the final paving, we think the final amount of the loan is going to be about $4.6 million. If you do quick math and add the $4.6 million to the $350, you'll see that that's less than $5 million. And I just told you the project was $6.6 million. So the delta there is the housing authority money. So the money that was, and we'll talk more about that. So that money came off of basically that money did not need to get borrowed. You paid bills with that money. As the money came in, it was handed over to the treasurer along with all the SRF reimbursement monies, and they've been paying the bills with that combination of monies. So that's, those are the only two loans.
And we have money
on the
in the interim before we start getting a lot of tie-in fees and whatnot to cover the new payments that are due rather than just the construction money.
Yep. So yes, there is, from the monies collected from DHCD, there's about $210,000 right now that they may have had to pay another bill, maybe of ours, since I quote that number. But they had about $210,000. And basically that is, so the next thing on here was the proposed financing plan. So the first piece, so the financing plan is really four primary parts. There's the housing authority, that contributed money. There's the town of Norton, basically the school, we refer to as the school share. It's paid by the town for the town properties, the schools as well as the other town properties that were served. There's the betterments that we'll go into more detail tonight about that are going to be assessed to the fronted properties along the way. And then there's the commitment from the town to provide the remainder of the annual payments to Norton, the APN monies, to the Water and Sewer Commission for the specific purpose of being able to pay down this debt, to basically close the gap after all those other three sources have before. So when I talk about the DHCD and the Housing Authority, they had a amount of, basically they had a grant that they, so the Housing Authority had a grant from DHCD to, it was going to be used to do whatever they needed to. Basically, when they were going to put their treatment plan in, that's what that grant was for. You know, the history goes back to, they approached you and said, let's work together. If we can use this money on something that's a better solution for us and is a solution going forward for the town as well as the schools. So, all that said, the final commitment towards construction was a little over 1.5 million. It was close to 1.6 million. And then they also paid a connection fee of $235. So they have a 1.8 million between all the monies that they contribute. So all that money has been collected and passed on to the treasurer, and she keeps it in an account, like I was saying, and pays the bills off of it. So all of the $1,578,000, all of the construction monies, that's been used to pay bills. When I say there's still a little over 200,000, that's basically, there's money remaining from the connection fee that was collected that hasn't been used to pay bills. There are more bills coming. There are also there'll be more SRF reimbursement. The majority of the remaining money will be covered through the SRF. So we should be able to protect that amount of money, and we did confirm at our meeting with the town finance people that, whatever money is left in there will be available then to use as you have to start paying down your annual debt. You'll have that money available to you, and it will be nice. We need some money at the beginning until things get ramped up, because I try not to say it too much, but there are a lot of moving parts.
Right.
And that's the theme here, is that we can project all we want about how this is going to work,
Right.
but the timing of when the betterments get assessed, when the monies come in, who pays over time, the APN, monies when they come in,
Right.
all of that. And as they ramp up, remember the APN is going up 10,000 a year, and that's critical too. In the early years, it's not enough. In the later years, it's more than you need. So
Right.
we're trying to bridge that gap until it flips to the point where it covers all of the money. So that's it on the DHCD. So we talked about the town share. So basically, the schools, one of the big pieces of this project was getting the high school and the L school off of the middle school treatment plant, as well as they now have the ability to get rid of the middle school treatment plant altogether. They have to do a little bit more work on their own, but all the infrastructure in 123 is in place. We reconnected that old force main to the manhole out in front of the housing authority. So the wastewater that used to pump from the high school to the L, that whole line is now reconnected so that they can pump it from the middle up to our pump station. So, and I am still working on a memo that summarizes all of that. They know most of it, but I'm also trying to combine the II issues and what they need to do. So we're working on getting something to the schools that kind of summarizes this all for them so they know what they can do. And it also provides a solution for the Solomons, because they've mentioned that that's been a problem too. So all the old water main between the Solomons and the middle school is set up. So they have to make a connection at the Solomons, some kind of pump station there, but they don't have to dig up 123. It's just work on the school property.
Corporation, they've already been changed off.
Yeah, that line was sleeved. The old water main was sleeved with the sewer pipe. I don't remember how long ago that was. So
Only to the middle school, right, or was it the Solomon?
no, it goes to the entrance.
Oh,
They did it all the way to Solomons.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's into the entrance.
That's what we were thinking. Somebody was on that day. That was good. I blame Dwayne.
It was the days of Dwayne.
It was.
Dwayne out.
Was it his brain?
Somebody had that going in the
Okay to
school,
say that, or
somewhere else.
someone else had the idea?
I believe it was one of the selectmen.
One of the selectmen. Okay.
Even better.
Is it an easement?
So
You're gonna miss this.
So the intent is that the school share, we had established the school share is about 25% when you look at the flows between all the different schools and whatnot, is what they're paying of the full cost. And they're going to pay all of that money as a share of the SRF loan. So the full amount of the local borrowing will continue to show up on your account. But when the SRF loan comes out each year, it's going to be split and the school's share. It's going to be like 35% of the SRF loan because that's how we get them to 25% of the full amount, if that makes sense. Okay. Because there was a little, we had to discuss that in the meeting, how they were going to work that. So, so that should be in place starting this year. So I haven't talked to Catherine, but I know she was working on that budget to make sure that that was ready. So the first payments on the SRF loan start this July. So they start fiscal year 22. The July payments are just interest. So the way the payments work on SRF, it's July and January. Every fiscal year, January is principal and interest, so the bigger payment is in January. And then the interest is split into two even payments. They split the full amount of the interest for the year, they just split into two payments. So the July payment is the smaller one. So we should already have money in place to pay the July bill. And what's happening too is, so when we close on April 28th, we've given them the estimated amount of the loan at $4.6 million, and that's going to change based on the final paving and the final costs, but it's going to be pretty close to that. And then they'll tweak the final numbers. Hopefully it'll be a little lower than that. We are kind of at the mercy of Mass DOT in terms of how much that's going to be. There's a big difference in tonnage, paving the full width versus half. So that's the last, hopefully the last unknown. We've had our share of those. So the third piece is the betterments. So that's another significant piece. I went into a little bit of detail here. So, the town meeting authorizations made it clear that the water and sewer board would be, had the authority to and would be using sewer betterment assessments on this project for monies that were not provided either by the housing authority or the schools to help pay the remaining debt. And in the memo, I grabbed a couple of, excerpts. I pulled some of the language out of the rules and regs for betterments. You use the equivalent unit method. You establish an equivalent dwelling unit. So EDU is the big buzz term here. So that's another acronym you can add to your list. And it's basically, an EDU is intended to be equivalent to a single-family residential home. So any property out there that's a single-family home is assessed one EDU, one equivalent dwelling unit, and then a two-family home is two, and so on and so forth. So the multi-family homes, the multi-unit condos, they pay per unit, per housing, what's considered a housing unit. And then for the commercial, which there's a good amount of commercial out here, it's pretty even split, actually, in the end, between commercial and residential. Those, based on the regs, are primarily based on 2 continuous years of water consumption records. And then dividing by, wherever the water use record is, we use a single-family home flow of 165 gallons per day. So you divide it by 165, and that'll tell you how many EDUs. So that's how that's working. And at some point, and I've been speaking with Rose and spoke with her some more today about the order of assessment that we need to work towards, which she'll be working with, and we'll help in any way you need, Rose, with the treasurer and the assessors to get the orders out to the people that need to get them. There's something else. So also in the regs, the betterment cost per EDU shall be determined based on the most recently completed municipal sewer project for which sewer betterments have been assessed, adjusted for inflationary and or construction cost indices. So, as part of the 7 o'clock discussion, we'll talk about that, about the rate. So the back of the packet has a table that we're probably not gonna be able to go into too much detail on it, but I'm happy to.
It's days to put together, at least you give me 2 minutes.
It's challenging, and then there's always
Small lady, how did you get small?
Yeah, I know, and I printed it out on 12 by 18. I should have got 24 by 36.
I don't even know.
Yeah. So, as much as, the regs establish pretty clearly, there are still specific. Yeah, so this table adds up to 102 EDUs out of, however many, I think it's like 50, just under 60 properties. And it adds up to 102 EDUs. There are definitely, all the residential ones are straightforward. Some of the commercial ones, in general, it's straightforward, but some of them warrant further discussion just based on the way it plays out. So the color coding in the table, if you want to, just if you do want to look at it in more detail, the blue indicates properties that were already connected to the Wheaton sewer. So before we even came through, they're Wheaton properties that were tied to their system and have already been flowing through your system through the agreement with Wheaton. So they did not get stubs under this project, nor did they get assessed because they haven't been approved. They're already connected.
Fair enough.
Just a couple of the orange properties are just a couple of. There's a Verizon station and a Mass Electric substation that don't have any facilities. They're small little parcels that's all they are, is their substations. So those were not left as stub and are not assessed. There's no facilities out there. All the yellow are the town parcels. So in addition, there's 3 parcels associated with the schools in the direct area between the high school and the L school, and then the administrative offices near the L school. But then there are other town parcels along the way, including the Historical Society. What made it so small?
Right.
Council on Aging.
Right.
The other one.
There you go.
Council on Aging. And so on. So, again, so the town can't assess the town a betterment. And that's why these costs are covered in the town's piece that they're doing through the taxes. So they're not getting a betterment assessment. They're just paying based on their overall share of the job. It's just semantics. It's just the wording of it. I mean, they're paying their share. It's just not. So those come out of the betterment. So they just don't get assessed any units in the EDU calculation. But they've paid their share of the project. So I highlighted some in green that are worth further discussion. And unfortunately, I didn't bring my cheaters, so I can't even.
Want me to read them?
So the top, that would be helpful. Yeah. What was the first one up top there?
The restaurant Weld one? The green one?
So the very top, right.
College apartment?
Yeah, so there's a couple. All right, so the first one at 5 Taunton Ave is like a 3-bedroom house. They've got, and it says in there that I think they're renting it out to students, to Wheaton students.
Okay.
And so these are right across from Howard Street, basically, over there. And when the assessors have it as a single-family home.
Yep.
When you look at the water use, it's the amount of water being used. And we don't do residential homes based on water. It's one home, it's one unit, but they're using enough water that it would be 2 units, 1.82. I think that's it.
1.82.
Nice. That's just from memory. I can't see it. I just remember that number. So we're still showing that as one assessment unit because based on the way the assessors have characterized it, they just call it a single-family home.
Yep.
But we found a note in there about, again, I just think they're renting their home. So I don't think it's like they're renting out rooms and different you know, multiple units. I think it's still one unit. They're using a lot of water.
The multi-family's all nailed down, so this is a single-family house that
Yeah. Which,
students are sharing, maybe.
and the reason that one jumped out at me was the next one down is number 21 Taunton Ave, which that's the first house, right? When you come out of Howard Street, it's right in front of you. We ran a stub just off the manhole out to that property. So if you come out Howard Street onto Taunton Ave, basically the house is to the left. The parcel is right in front of you. That's like an 8-bedroom home.
Yep.
And they list it under the assessors as 4 to 8 units, and then further down it says 4 units. So they're calling it like a 4-bedroom home.
4 unit.
Right? They're calling it a 4-unit apartment.
Yep.
The water use is less than what's being used at number 5.
Well, some of those people go over there to
But it does sound like they're renting.
those college students.
They're renting multiple rooms at this place, I think. You know, to different people, or it's a flat. I don't know. But
Again, you have to start somewhere.
so we do this based on the assessors data.
Yep.
So the assessors have categorized this as 4 units.
Okay.
So they're shown here as 4 betterment units. And I bring all the, you know, once these things go out, you're gonna, you know, the staff is going to get people calling them and saying what the heck is going on.
The property owners can't have it both ways. If the assessors see your property as a 4-unit building, then you have the right to split up your units and do all that and have 4 apartments. If you don't want that, you've got to make it 1 dwelling unit, and then have the assessors change it. But it's currently a 4-unit building, and they are capable of renting out 4 apartments there, so they're due $64,000.
Right. So, just to point it out, so that will show up that way.
I mean, oh yeah, everybody's going to yell and scream right up until their septic fails, and then they'll jump on and thank us. Or at least we can say you're welcome.
Yeah, what was the next one down?
I do like to get one in. Green is college apartments, rooming houses.
Yeah, the same thing. So that only
Number
shows up.
10,
Yeah.
West Main.
So it only shows up as 1 unit again there. So because they're not calling it in the assessors multiple units.
Good.
So I think what was interesting about some of these, I think some of these next ones are some of the bigger commercial properties.
Yeah, small retail, the barber shop.
So what gets, and I was talking to Fran about this earlier, I mean, some of these are, you know, so it's 1 owner, what I believe is 1 water service, and then there's 4 units that he's selling out. There's 4 properties, but the assessors are just calling it 1 property. I have water use records, so based on water use records for it, you know, most of them end up being more than 1 based on the amount of water they're using. And the regs, you know, don't say that you'll have to pay for each business use. I mean, it's 1 commercial property.
Right.
They're different, 4 different uses.
Yeah.
So
Again,
we've done it based on water use. That's what we've done. The regs say for commercial properties, base it on water records, and that's what we've done.
Which one are you talking about right now?
So what's
the barber shop,
the first one? So that's
50-56 bundles.
not.
No, this is barber shop, Genesis
I'm
Nail.
gonna get my.
Bruce Finch's place.
Yep. No, that's cool.
You got 2 pair?
You need the magnifying glass. This is little.
So, why is he assessing the bank? 25 West Main Street, why is he assessing it as 1 unit and not on water consumption?
What number, 25?
25 West Main.
It's not highlighted.
It's a bank, but he's got it as non-residential. If you follow it all the way across, it's a $16,000 revenue. So it's 16 the minimum, 16,000 is the minimum, regardless of the water usage for commercial?
It's a minimum of 1.
A minimum of 1.
I don't, you see, and after 7, I mean, we're talking about betterments now?
Yeah.
So,
All right.
I don't know
You
if you wanna call
open
it
up
that part of the,
Yeah, you wanna open up the betterment discussion?
I think so. And then we can come back to Tara's report after.
I like it. There was a question about, 25 West Main Street. Steve, as far as the amount of the assessment, and they didn't use enough water to override the 16,000.
So which one here?
The bank,
25 West Main.
under the bank, northeast savings.
I just got
Okay.
a little confused when you discussed how commercial, or basically non-residential, you said it was going to be, calculated
Yeah,
as
factor, yeah.
water usage.
Yep.
But it's gonna be a minimum of 1,
Everything's a minimum of 1, and you round up if it's 1.01,
okay,
according to the regs, you round up.
okay,
Yeah.
so that makes sense then,
Okay?
the minimum.
Yeah, 1 is the minimum.
Okay.
So that was number 25. So when you look at 3032,
Yep.
so you got Wendell's Pub, you got an auto body shop, office, I think it's just the 2. So it's a restaurant, office, and garage. There's 2 stubs out there because of the way those properties were set up. We did leave 2 stubs. And actually, either way you do it, so the math on this one, based on the water use, equated to 4 units. So I think that one, makes sense. So the next one is Ace Hardware, Bog Iron Brewing, and CVS.
Yep.
So they're all lumped together, and Frank, to your knowledge, is that just one service out there? Is that why they're all? Yeah, so they're 2, it's owned by the same person, it's just 2 separate parcels side by side.
Right.
So we have one set of data on the water use, and it equates, most of that water I'm sure is coming from Bog Iron.
Sure.
And if you just use the water use data, like the regs say, it comes to 5 units. I think we're good there. I mean, I think one argument could be made that we don't have it. If we had water use data for all 3 buildings,
That's how it's
would we?
the customers then, it's not really
Yeah.
up to us.
Well, if we
only
have-
1 meter.
If we have water use on
I'm
each,
sure they'll, excuse me, they'll allocate as they see fit.
so I think it works fine. And I guess my point is that if you had water meters on each, you might say, all right, CVS is only equates to 0.2 units.
Yep.
So they're 1.
Yep.
The hardware store is 0.3 units.
Yep.
They're 1.
Yep.
Bog Iron is 4.6 units. So they're 5.
Yep.
So in theory, it would be potentially 7 units, as opposed to all of this flow that's coming into the 5 units is coming from Bog Iron.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fine, and that's the way your regs are set up, and that's
You can't backpedal, I mean, we're just
Right.
looking at a picture in time of what they have when we did that assessment.
Yep. And then the third one down, you look at a parcel like Walgreens, their flow is low. So they equate to 1 unit. The only reason I put this one in here is because we did look at some of them, because you can use Title V also, and based on the square footage of Walgreens, if we did it based on Title V, it would be 2 units. Actually, it would be like 2.2 units, so it would round to 3.
Right, but we have to be,
But we're being consistent.
we have to be uniform.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the Finch Barber Shop, Jennifer's Nails, Whirling Vine, and Valerie Larson photo. There's, again, it's 2 addresses, 1 water service, 4 different businesses. Their water use equates to 2 units. So they're going to get assessed. So that property owner is going to get assessed too. The House of Pizza property, you got the three, you got the tanning salon and the bagels and cream. And actually, either way you look at that one, I mean, using the water use records, it equates to 3.
Okay.
So that one works. I highlighted the Cumberland Farms property. So based on it being vacant, we don't have water use data. I don't know if we have, so we would assess it 1. You have the ability to revisit it when they connect if it would have warranted more than 1.
Right.
You can do that. I guess the question is,
It's probably like a Walgreens, not a lot.
are they doing gas pumps, and wasn't that one of the
public toilet.
issues out there?
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, for now it's 1 unit, and I guess the question, Fran, if we had more detail
I don't even
on
know
what was going in there, would it be worth? Huh? Right, I don't know where they're at.
I don't even know. They are still interested in the property. There's, work going on now to make sure that their utilities are installed before the road is paved.
Okay.
If not, that might be a deal breaker.
Wow.
Yeah, they're gonna run out of time here.
It's gonna sweeten it. When you say utilities, what do you mean by utilities?
The water.
They need to increase the water service and they need to do a gas service.
Is the gas on the same side? Or is that across the street?
Both across the street.
Oh, jeez.
So when I jump down further,
Didn't have anything? The bank didn't have that?
Undersized on both.
You always see something through.
On the gas, but not on the water. They want a 2-inch line to feed their facility. There's a 3/4 existing right now.
In the bathroom, the coffee all over.
The coffee, they have some slop sinks out back that they use for if they're going to have the roller grill and things like that. There's a procedure for that, so.
all right, so a little further down, the West Cafe, that's the old Dunkin'.
Mm-hmm.
So the water use data that we have is from Dunkin',
Right.
and that equates to 4 units. Honeydew came out to 3 units. Dunkin' came out to 4 units based on their historic water use. But they're not Dunkin', so should we just be assessing 1 unit? I mean, they're gonna be a restaurant, are they already up and running?
No,
They're not yet.
I think they did pull those, didn't they?
Oh, they're there.
That's what I heard. Okay. That they, some cafe.
So it's technically
Rockland.
vacant.
Right.
It's vacant, right?
Owned by Dunkin's. Or old Dunkin's owners, right?
I don't know.
That's what that is sold it.
So they used a lot of water when it was based on what Dunkin' was using. You know, and Honeydew's 3. I mean, it's a water-based
Right.
business, so they're using a lot. So I don't know that we can assess that 4 units. Now, can we base it on what was there before?
I would think we could.
And assume that it's going to be
Want them coming for the bank?
zoned for a restaurant?
I'm coming for the bank.
As a picture of time, we went down the properties and made calculations based on what they had. You can't do it willy-nilly for what was there a year ago and then not look at every single other property. So you gotta just make a cut in the timeline and say, this is what we have.
Yeah.
And if people wanna negotiate, well, that's why there's a commission.
Alright, I'll leave the 4 for now. But it was. So the last one that I had a question on is this is a residential home. So this is the only one that I can see that was mixed use. So it's a residential home, but then they have a
Mixed use is the
service garage.
section of town is always a good commercial.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of that. What number?
So it's number 107 West Main Street.
All right. Ah,
And I
yeah.
didn't see, I mean, the way most regs that I read is that you would get assessed for the residential unit, not based on water use, just because it's a residential unit. And then, based on water use, you would assess the commercial piece, the garage there. So I believe this would be 2. I believe it's 1 for the residential and one for the commercial use. The
Are
mixed use
they in
component.
business? I mean,
Do they have water to the garage?
I believe so.
Are they 2 liters?
I mean, do you know it's a service garage?
no,
Mechanic?
it's not part of the stone, it's a house, the garage of this.
Is it the Mason building?
No.
Didn't it, the Mason one?
No, it's,
Behind Hess or whatever it's called,
no,
Ford Gas.
no, it's before that, it's close to the main, the intersections and that. It's a house with a garage.
Galloway's old.
Galloway's house. And I don't even know if they're still in business out there.
Right next to the Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
So according to the assessors,
Okay.
they have it, right? So again, we try and base, and
Yep.
I don't know how much, so we'll send this to the assessors. I don't know how much they vet that. I mean, they're obviously going to look for us to tell them how many assessment units,
Mhm.
but they need to confirm for us that they treat it as 2 different
Yep.
uses, and these other ones are 4 units.
It's the village commercial thing. It's a northern-specific zone that a lot of residential properties have a business component, and this is an example. And I just don't know how active it is or was. That's to be determined later by others.
So Nancy Circle didn't tie in?
So we left the stub, but we didn't run a sewer down there, so they're not funded. So it would be a private extension
Oh,
at this point, if they want to do that. The same with Scott, the property at the front of Scott, we left the stub to get off the road,
Mm-hmm.
but we didn't go far, we didn't go down there to pick up those homes unless you choose to do that on a future contract. Hernandez will probably never tie in because that's where all the ledge is. I mean, that's not going to be cheap for them.
My last meeting.
If we had sued them, we'd still be hammering out there. We'd still be out there hammering.
That's it.
So,
Catch a break.
Right. What do we want to just run a spaghetti line?
So the blast.
Right.
so that's good. I didn't know if we'd be able to go into that kind of detail on the table. So I'm going to, so you guys have this. You can look at it more if you want, Rose. I can send you this as an Excel file if that helps. I'll email this whole package as a PDF for memo and this, and then I can also send you the Excel if you want. And we can talk more about that, because that's so I had asked Rose today, so the water use data that we have here,
Mm-hmm.
we haven't looked at it recently. We did it back when we started the project. So this is 2016 and 17.
Right.
Because you're supposed to use 2 years of uninterrupted service.
Okay.
So Rose is going to pull 18, 19, and 20. And we'll have to be careful with that. We'll have to be careful with the 2020 data, with the pandemic,
Right.
for the commercial properties. So these numbers should stay fairly consistent.
Sure.
Fairly, but we know everything fluctuates.
Right.
So, I think it's worth looking at the more kind. Someone's going to ask, You did this based on numbers from 4 or 5 years ago.
They definitely will be out. Something like
Which is within your right. I mean,
Right.
we can still use that data. I mean, if it's still the same property, same use, it provides more context to it. It's just more data. If something weird's going on now, we got to find out, well, how come it's so low now? So anyway, we'll look at that.
And focus on the ones that are close, either just over or just under.
Right.
The number of units.
Yep.
Because you could flip up or down.
Yep. So as it is after 7 o'clock, I think we need to vote on the amount of our.
So let's go back to the memo, and then and finish going through this, because that'll bring us to it. So we were on page 3. So we're talking about betterments. We're basically done with this page. The paragraph at the bottom of that page talks about the 102 EDUs and the assessment schedule in Appendix C, which we just went through. So the next page, so basically the last page of the memo before we get to the appendices. So the last betterment assessment issued by this board was levied in 2003 for Lake Winnicott at a cost of $11,183 per EDU. So if we use an annual interest rate of 2% over the past 18 years that it's been, that brings us to like $15,985. recommendation, and we've been talking about since the very first town meeting vote, between 15 and 16,000
Right.
for this project. Costs have continued to go up, obviously, and we've talked also about this, is that we didn't want to use that as a reason to increase the burden on these people, the people that were fronted by the sewer.
Right.
So that's where the APN is picking
That's
up,
help us out.
is helping fill the gap, because to have these, these assessments, if they were going to pick up the rest that wasn't housing authority or schools, they'd be more like, $23,000.
Right.
They'd be
Right. Oh, yeah.
in that range. So our recommendation is, again, we gave the range of, I've been talking about 15 to 16. I think based on the cost of this project and the calculations that we did to go to the higher end of the 16 grand is what we would recommend, which is consistent with the numbers discussed. If you go with the 16 grand, I didn't, so that 1.7 is wrong, because the EDUs changed as I was finishing the memo, a couple of these numbers. It's close to that. So the betterments are like 1.63 million. So you collect about 1.63 million in betterments. It ends up being pretty close to 3 equal shares. The housing authority, a little bit more than everyone, then the schools, and then the betterments, but they're all within 100,000 of each other in the end, I think, as you step it down between the three. Not that that's what the goal was, that's just how it worked out. So that's our recommendation on that. We'll talk about that. I think the other thing we want to talk about is the interest rate, setting what the interest rate is going to be. And I assume that authority lies with this board in addition to the... Okay. And we talked about this, when Winnacunnet was 4%, the laws only allowed you to do either 5% or 2% greater than the loan that you got. Those laws are gone. They now just say you can either charge 5% or up to 2% more than the amount of the loan.
Okay.
And we talked about this a while ago, and the numbers we used in calculating things were 2.5%, to give basically the people that are going to portion the money over time a deal close to what you have on the SRF loan, with just a little bit extra. So at 2.5%, assuming that everyone were to apportion over 20 years, which we'll talk a little bit more about at the end of the memo here, that would be about $109,000 a year that you would bring in benefits if everybody just paid it over time.
Okay.
Those are the two votes. I think we can come back to those at the end. So I have some discussion points at the end. The other thing, we should talk about the APN and how that works. So the final piece of the financing plan is to use the escalating incremental APN payments associated with the Mansfield, Foxborough, Norton, MFN district.
Mm-hmm.
So back in our effective FY 2020, the Board of Selectmen agreed that these incremental monies, which increase $10,000 every year, would be dedicated to the Water and Sewer Commission for payment of the debt service associated with this project. That was discussed when the costs were going up. That was one way that we were going to be able to pay it back. Based on the cash flow discussed herein. So it's our understanding, and Rose, you said that money, it was $50,000 in FY 20 was what that cost was, and that was signed over. I don't know what the term is. I mean, it was signed over to the Water and Sewer, so does it show up in your...
Mm-hmm. Well, we collected to begin with, yeah.
You collect it, now you don't have to
turn anything
Turn it
over
in.
the account.
So it stays in your, account,
Mm-hmm.
enterprise account.
Is that,
That's what I was looking for.
is there a limit on that? A yearly limit? How long is that APN?
I believe there is, and then what happens
Like 10
after
years
that,
or something?
and then it can't exceed, cannot exceed more than 3% increase per year.
Good, very good.
So it was 50,000 last year. So there's the $200,000 payment
200 base.
and that's not part of this.
From the beginning, it increases 10 a year, so it gets 50,
So that's
it goes to 60, and then so on to.
So the payments for
300.
FY21, and I don't know, is that over the course of the year, or is it a one-time payment?
The payments, they come in, quarterly.
Quarterly. So at the end of this fiscal year, it should have been an additional 60. So the 50 from last year, and then another 60 from this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's nice that we have that first year, so that's another little kicker
Yep.
in the account right now. It helps with the balancing, like I was saying, that, you know, without the APN, we'd have a shortfall in the first, well, we'd have a shortfall period.
Yeah.
And even with that first kick of 50 grand, that doesn't quite make up the difference. But now we got the 50 plus the 60 from the first 2 years, and then it goes to 70, and when it hits 80, it makes up the difference, and then going forward. So it doesn't end at 100, so it doesn't stop at.
I believe it stops at 100.
I think it's 10 years,
And
and then
then
That's
they
what-
negotiate it with the new rate, the new increase is gonna be, but it can't increase more than 3%.
So we'll continue to increase.
Right.
But not just 10,000 a year. Okay. And that's fine. All the calculations we looked at capped it at 100.
Cost value of money, it's, 10,000 is worth less and less every year. There you go.
Okay. And that's, so in Appendix C, right before the, so last page before the spreadsheet, is the same thing, you know, that Fran had put together back at the beginning, and we've been updating each year. And this just kind of walks through all the numbers we just talked about. So it's this, so just before, you go all the way to the last page, the spreadsheet, and then the page right before the spreadsheet. So you look at the total project cost, $6.6 million that we talk about, that our estimated final number is. Take the DHCD money out of that. Take the school's contribution out of that. Take the betterment out of that. That brings it down. So there is a SRF principal forgiveness amount. So whatever the final SRF loan is, it also includes a 2% principal forgiveness. So the $92,000 is based on a $4.6 million loan. So that's money that you just don't have to pay back. So, you know, that helps. Again, we've been trying to be conservative with our numbers, so that comes off of the loan also. And this is kind of as simplistic as, again, I talk about all the moving parts. This is a very simplistic way of looking at all the money that comes in and what has to go out. So just continuing to walk down. So you take the principal forgiveness off, that gets you to a number. You look at that connection fee. So that subtotal of $1.4 million over the next 20 years is the amount that isn't covered by, it needs to be covered by the APN. And it equates to about $87,000 a year when you put it out over 20 years with the interest rate. And that's why in the first year, you've got $110,000 now, because you got the 50 plus the 60. And then next year you'll get 70, which isn't quite the 87 that you need, but there's still a little left here, plus there's money left from in that 200 that we have right now. And then the APN goes up to 90. And then going forward, it's covered. And again, that's all impacted by when people pay their betterment. That's the biggest
Right.
moving thing. The other stuff is pretty, once the loan is set, that stuff's all set. The school pays this much, betterments, I mean, you guys pay this much in your annual budget, but then as you wait, most likely there'll be some early surge where you collect money early on
I've
benefits.
already heard, after the world famous, town meeting where people threw bows and arrows at you and I, Steve.
Which one? The most recent one?
A couple of,
Which one?
right. The one at the, football field.
Oh, yeah.
A couple people came up and said, don't listen to them, we need this, and as soon as it's available, I'm gonna tie in. And, so they need it. And there's gonna be people, and I don't know how they're gonna finance, if they're gonna take the, over the 20 years, but I think there's a portion of people that will certainly show up and pay.
Right, and then, so that you don't get the interest on that money, except, and again, I asked this question, and so it goes into the account, and you don't need it right away, so it'll be a little while before,
Right.
say you collect 10% of the betterment money up front.
Yeah.
So in the first couple of years, you'll be covered, because the
Right.
money's there. It earns interest as you don't use it, it just doesn't earn as much as what you're collecting. It doesn't earn 2.5%.
No,
It doesn't earn 2.5%. It doesn't come close to that.
nobody does right now.
Right.
Does the enterprise fund ever show how much interest earnings there are, what's in retained earnings?
So that's a fairly detailed explanation of
Very good.
where we're at, and now you've got it all in writing here. So if you have any other questions, feel free. I would like to go back to the memo. I have some discussion points. This is where we'll get to some of the votes. So discussion points, action items. So the first bullet under that is commission to vote on cost per EDU, and our recommendation is the $16,000. So based on the discussion, if you want to have any more discussion on that, but I would suggest you guys entertain that now.
I think that's good. I'll request a motion for each EDU to be based on a $16,000 budget.
Motion to approve the EDU, pricing as,
So it's on the previous page. I think
this one? Correct.
back, all the way back to the end of the memo, right before Appendix A. Last page before Appendix A. Oh, it's this way. Yeah, no, I see it. Thanks. It's confusing because those are all Appendix So it's those bullets at the bottom of that. So the top bullet is to vote on a cost per EDU. Good.
Okay, motion to approve, the cost per EDU, recommendation is $16,000.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. Motion passes. Each EDU will be valued at $16,000. And now as far as the interest on this going forward, 2.5% is recommended. Let's get that in here.
Motion to approve, the interest rate, the proportionate, betterments at 2.5%.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye?
Aye. The interest rate going forward will be 2.5%.
I think those are the only two you have to vote on?
That's the only choices we have.
Yeah.
And you just trying to,
Thank you.
So, I had a question about that. If we, so let's talk about that before they vote about that.
They can go and the term up to the commission to decide.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll talk about
What do you
that.
base it on
So
today?
I think, what we're used to seeing typically and is most common, obviously people have they can pay it up within 30 days of when they get the bill, and they don't apportion it over time. We recommend and have seen that you go with 20 years. It's just more standard. It lines up with the loan.
Yep.
Everything about it is cleaner. I think in Norton, you've given more options in the past, and I think that, you guys could tell me it can get a little confusing. If you tell people you can do 15 years, you can do 5 years, I think it's either you pay it,
A publisher's clearinghouse is a year.
I think it's just either you pay it up front or you apportion it.
Yep.
And apportioning it means 20 years.
20 years. All right then, I'll ask for another motion on the apportioning of said betterment to be 20 years.
Very good.
So that's the third bullet from the bottom, Steve, is where we talk about it. It's not necessarily a motion, but
A motion to, they have the option to pay.
You can pay in full with no interest at all, or it can be apportioned over 20 years.
So and that's what the motion's gonna be
Yeah.
on that? Motion to, approve of the option of property owners to pay the bill over 20 years or pay the bill up front.
Exactly. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We have a 20-year note, almost paid in 30 days after they receive the bill.
And there's no penalty for three payments, the early payments.
Good.
so in line with that, it's probably worth, well, let's go back to these three previous bullets, just because these really don't matter. So the first two you already voted on, the third one we already talked about. Rose, you're going to help us put together the water records. So I mentioned here that we just need to look at more recent water records. We looked at the table. So the fourth one was just about going through the table. I didn't, again, thank you for taking the time to do that. I didn't know if we'd have time to go through that in detail. It can get tedious, trust me. So then the next one is the timing of assessments. So that can be done at any time at this point, and that feeds into your discussion. So we'll get you the table, and then your discussions with the treasurer and the assessor. I mean, the way I understand it, and we talked about it, is you can now, so you're going to need to issue the letters to people to say, the sewer's approved for use, you can now connect, and here's your betterment assessment. Is that two separate letters, or is that all in one? How have you done? Do you know?
I think it can be all in one.
I think it can.
And then the forms that I have to fill out, that's going to be filed, the sooner the better, obviously. And the letters, if they go out by July 1st, they'll have the first assessment in the February billing.
So that's what I want to know. That's what I mean by time.
It's the third quarter.
But it's always the third quarter, but so we need to get them out by July in order to make the time frames of the treasurer and how they do the billing process. So that the February billing process starts in July.
Well, yeah, it has to do with that whole recap and the assessment for December.
Yep.
To do the tax rate, when all that's completed, it goes on that.
So they need to know by July 1st who has apportioned it? So like, do we need to get the bills out by June 1st? So that people have
No, I
30
think
days?
July 1st. I think we get the bills out by
July 1st. Okay.
And they have 30 days to respond.
Earlier is always better.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good to know. So that was that question. Okay. And we definitely, we shouldn't have a problem doing that.
Yeah.
So I think we have pretty much everything we need. We just got to put the letters together and get some information from the assessors. Okay, and then...
And the other thing has to happen here is the overall record of January 1 of this year. This is record, January 1, 2020. The year the bills are going out.
Yeah. So you'll see that on the table. It says that, actually, that column says owner as of January 2021. So we'll need the assessors to confirm that. We put in what we had, but they would have the most, our information isn't as up to date as theirs. So we talked about the 20 years we'll pay up front. So the whole record, bill, lien process, whether do you record first and put a lien on every property and then send the bills? And there's a lot that goes into it. Or do you send the bills, give people the 30 days, and then lien them? And there's a lot of risk in that, is that people slip through the cracks. If something gets sold in that 30-day period, nobody, unless people are,
We've been there.
Well, we already have one on the books right now. We need 3 West Main.
and Rose, I don't know if the town already has a policy on that, if they record first, or if they're gonna look to you guys. Is that another vote that this commission needs to make, or a decision that we need to make?
I think it's definitely a decision, yeah.
Maybe
All
not.
we have to do is go to update the ownership on, if you know the transfer, it's 86 West Main.
Well, what's happening right now is these people are selling, and I had a phone call yesterday wanting to know, based on the current rules and regulations, once the sewer is available, they'll have 5 years to tie. That's correct. But the betterment will be assessed immediately. And they said, so if I sell my house now, and the betterments haven't been assessed, and my system is fine, it's going to be the new owner's problem.
Except that money's going to be due from the, actually, it'll still be by the owner as of January 1.
Yeah.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I said to him, that's really a legal issue. Between a realtor, a closing attorney, and the current homeowner, new homeowners should be advised of all of it. Whether the money's put in.
If they're aware of it, they're in violation of the, non-disclosure.
Right.
Oh, yes. It's a lawsuit.
Exactly.
It's not
That's exactly what happened.
So
I'm not
agree with that.
I'm not a judge, and he doesn't look like one either.
Well, no.
We replaced one on TV.
You know. So,
It gets ugly.
it's not that ugly. If people are stand-up humans and disclose, I had 3 mice in the basement, and by the way, you owe $16,000 for a sewer, it's all good. If they want to shirk away and the buyer's closing attorney is sleeping, they're going to get a surprise. And there's errors and omissions, or the, what is it, that's engineering. It's, no, the attorney's, clause.
Not looking 93A.
Yeah, but if the attorney doesn't find it, or whatever, and the owner knows it, and they know it because they spoke with you, so, it happens.
So, are we all in agreement that it should get filed sooner than later?
Yes,
Record first.
push that, bro. Well, I don't know about recording, because there's dollars involved, like, if we
We
were
have to pay to get the lien off.
See, that's the reason this changed was back in the 80s with a client that I worked with early, and Steve cleaned up all my messes. Well, that's happened before. So,
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to be the guy there at the end.
And what ended up happening is that their assessments were a lot less per unit, and some people just wanted to pay it off. What happened is that they didn't have that opportunity because lien went first.
They were lean,
And
right.
then they get noticed, now they gotta go to the registry themselves, and it costs them money to.
It costs us money to lean, right? So we're gonna be leaning properties that may come in and write us a check, and then you gotta spend more money on leaning.
Right, but given the number of properties you're having, which is not a lot,
Yeah.
and given the dollar amount, which some people might say is a lot, I'm gonna take a wild guess that very few people are gonna come in and pay the whole thing off at once. So most of those people are gonna apportion, so they're gonna let it go 30 days, and some towns it becomes an automatic. If you don't pay within 30 days, you're apportioning.
Right.
Done. Other towns basically say you have an option, check one or the other, depending on the notices you put out. But, like I said, the typically notice says, if you don't pay the 30 days, you're automatically
That
apportioned.
seems to be more effective.
Yeah, I would think so.
That's kind of nice wording.
That's how it works. So
Not a lot of.
it's, more communication isn't a bad thing, and putting something out to, how many properties you say, Steve? 60?
60,
Even something you wanted to put out in the mail for inexpensive money, that the sewer project is done,
Return receipt
it's
request.
been approved for use, and the betterments are gonna be assessed before July 1st.
Okay.
And so people can't say we never were told.
We should do registered mail.
Yes.
Let's go that step, and then with the wording of,
Then somebody can't say you never told us.
right, then the wording of it rolls over to a lien after the 30 days. there's nothing they can do. They can come in and whine and say, I only have one unit here and that's available.
Is that letter gonna be the bill?
No.
No, this is a notification of where we are, and there will be the bill coming prior to July 1st. But this is,
And then when-
this is to put them on notice that the bill is coming.
Gotcha.
It's Paul Revere, right? We know.
Yeah, no, I get it.
So you want that to come through this office then?
I think it should.
Because the other notification comes through the.
Well, that's on the taxes.
Right.
But as we are brainstorming here, I think it's more appropriate, and it covers our ass on the 86 West Main Street that says, hey, return receipt requested letter number DC 8352. They got it March 28th.
I mean, that could be the notification that you can now tie in. The sewers are approved for use, you can now tie in.
Okay.
And by the way, you are being assessed a betterment. That will come under separate mailing, and you will get that before July 1st.
So
And you can tell them, and then you have 30 days. So are you saying you're going to give them 30 days and then lean it?
that's the way it's
Record it?
going.
Record it out? Yeah.
It's clear.
Yeah, there's advantages to this. There's pros and cons.
People may want to take a vacation to the campground, I guess you could, right? So if people bail in, June, and it overlaps and nobody finds it, and the dog eats the letter.
I'm not worried about people who miss the 30 days. It's just what happens before you lean it.
Well, I'm
It's just
saying,
the
like,
transfer of property
Yeah.
before you lean it. They've got the bill, they haven't paid it, they sell the house, but you're right.
no, I wouldn't. You don't need 3 points of contact.
Yeah.
It's just once upon a time, there was a sewer project, which you all knew about. Now, we're embarking on the payment for this, so either you take it over 20 years, or come up with a couple of items.
All right, so we'll have the assessors verify the owners,
Mm-hmm.
and you want these letters out by when? Our return receipt requested letters.
Whatever's reasonable.
I'm sure all right, I'm sure. Do you have a sample letter? I have some from other communities. I could send you
Yeah.
a letter that's gone out like this for other communities
But
that could be used.
And at some point, since people are gonna be allowed to tie in, you have a list of approved, drain layers and stuff.
just the ones that have renewed their licenses. I mean, once this gets out, more people will probably come.
Yeah.
So you kept talking about the closeout of the project being April 20th. Is that the date we should wait till it's
So that's the loan. The loan closes then, is all. So
Okay, so that doesn't matter.
no.
These
No.
numbers are.
Yeah, I mean, the final, the project,
They can
I
sign
mean,
it.
people are connected. The schools are connected, the housing authority is
Yeah.
connected, the
Mhm.
system,
Get them on
you
the-
guys own it.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody moves right away, they might get in before the final pavement, but it doesn't matter. I mean, they're off the pavement, yeah.
They're not gonna beat us, we're there. Green pipes in the ground.
Okay, ready to go.
I like it.
I'll send one, I'll find one that is, I got a few different ones. I think the Nantucket ones might be good. We did a couple of years ago.
Very good.
So that's that discussion. So the only other thing here,
Excited for the sewer?
so the last bullet, and I don't know if this is really a discussion for here, is just the terms of the loan, whether it's, like a mortgage or constant principal declining interest. I think the town sets that. I don't think you guys get involved with that.
Let's let the treasurer, town manager,
The standard on like municipal bonds typically is constant principal declining interest. The actual payback to the trust is like a mortgage.
mm-hmm.
Preferred way, dollar-wise for the town, constant principal declining interest, and that's been pretty much the standard on betterments since the beginning of time.
All right. Simple enough.
That's all I got.
Hector was
Okay.
Thank you for your time and
No, thank you. That's a very nice, tidy package of a complex issue. I appreciate that. William, you still out there? All right. Well then. All right, check out here.
All right. So the water update should be relatively brief.
Did I take up your time?
I don't remember what it was about all the alphabets. So we were working with Frank on the EWIA project, the ASR project, all the other acronyms. So as you said, the ASR is due on April 8th. We don't see any issues getting that wrapped up, and then the American Water Infrastructure Act, EWIA Resiliency, due by the end of June. We're also making some really good headway there too. So next steps for that, we're just setting up the cybersecurity information, getting that meeting up on the books, and then our second meeting, which I'm sure will be even more rigorous than the first. We're learning more acronyms, so it's just exciting. So the other actual real projects that we've got going on, so we have the Weld 5 and 6 project over at the replacement spot. We did have a little bit of a hiccup with a little bit of siltation build up and overflow of one of the straw wattles, I should say. And immediately notified, conservation is aware of it. It was frozen ground, so unfortunately they were not able to clean it all up, but it is unfrozen now, which is good. They're spending this week cleaning up all their debris, cleaning up the sites. They finished drilling of well 6 last Friday. They're going to be focused on moving back over to 5 this week as well, but the main goal is to make sure they clean up all of the additional, basically the soils that came out of the ground from the actual well drilling. Got a little messy with a lot of snow, a lot of freezing, thawing, and it's predominantly cleaned up here, but it did go into a little bit into the within the protection zone. So very small areas, but on the other hand, something that the driller should have been ready for, and has been reminded that production, while very important, also the wetlands are also very important. So we've been in communication with conservation on that, and sent some photos. Immediately went down there to discuss the driller, remind them of their stockpile areas, and that they're keeping in check. There is a lot of increased foot traffic. They're dealing with a lot of pedestrians, so they're trying to move things out of the way as needed. But we had originally kind of cordoned off some areas, and people are just not abiding by that. So the good news is we're moving over to 5, and we're going to be installing the screen next. Next steps after that will be the well development itself, and then the 48-hour pumping test. So we'll work with the treatment plant folks and Frank on that, and getting a little bit more fine-tuned schedule and whatnot. And then once that's all set, hopefully by then the screen for 6 will be on site, so we can just flip right over to that and get that started. So that project, other than a little bit of the hiccup there with the overflow, a little bit of debris, I should say, is going really well. They're glad to be done with 6. And they're glad that the screen was just, found and the shipping of the missing shipping freights for weeks on end. It's supposed to only take about 2 to 3 weeks, but it took about 8, I want to say, in all total. So it's here and it's ready to be installed. So we're looking forward. We're hoping that there won't be any issues with the next screen we work. So well 5 and 6 going well. We're also in the process of completing our design, working on that as far as the upgrades to the station and abandonment of the existing structure. So we're going to be setting up a site meeting in the next couple weeks with the water operators and Frank, just to kind of walk through and double check what we are planning to do in the project is matching what they want. So full disclosure, full open communications, making sure the operators know exactly what we're going to do. We see any other issues that possibly were decided on without the knowledge. So that project's going well. I think if you have any questions on that, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to switch over to the treatment plant. Okay. So the treatment plant, at the last meeting, we discussed a few of the outstanding items. One of the big ones was the recycle tank. We were about to fill that later that week, so I didn't really have any updates for anybody. The filling went well. This is the good news. It actually held, and we are below the allowable leakage rate for those tanks. So it passed. That has been a year-long struggle, so that was good news. No, there's no much yet. We haven't placed it online, so what we've requested is that they honor a 1-year warranty from this point of acceptance moving forward. If there's concerns or you'd like a longer-term warranty, it is contractually obligated for them to provide a 1 year, so if there's something longer that you'd like, 5, 10, whatever it might be, it would be an extra expense. And I need to negotiate that with them if need be, but they are willing to provide, and I forwarded the email that they will provide a 1 year from the point of acceptance. So, I'm counting that as last week, when it was confirmed by Derek, the operator, that it did in fact hold, and only had a little bit of leakage there for over a course of the 48 hours that was tested for. So that is something we can discuss moving forward. There was a couple other small items that were still outstanding on the punch list that they have since completed as well. So just as we were having this meeting, actually I received emails with the information concerning the as-built drawings. So I need to confirm and check that information to make sure it matches what we have on file. But we did receive at least the GPS points that they took for the rest of the setup out there for wells 5, 6, and 4. The pipeline going to Plain Street as well. They had given us it earlier, about a month ago or so, I'd say, the treatment plant setup itself, but they hadn't. I was like, well, where's the water main across the river? All that other information that we really still need. So they did provide that today. They also provided us with about 30 or 40 so construction photos post-construction that are required by the order conditions for the closeout, which expires tomorrow. So they're cutting it to the wire as usual, but I got it tonight, so we're going to pull it together and hopefully get information over to conservation by end of day tomorrow. So they just need our sign-off that things have been constructed as shown on the original permit application, and that it includes the as-built drawings as well as the photographs of post-construction. So we've been monitoring that the whole project, and we've had basically at least one full season of the fall. We have some growth on everything, and then so this year, so our photos are not green, beautiful grass, but they do show grass at least that stabilize the area. So I have some photos from last fall if need be, but we'll present that to the Conservation Commission and hopefully close that out. Those were the two final pieces as far as permit closeout were remaining on the punch list. There are some minor little items that I confirmed with Eric that Methuen did complete last week while they were on site. One of them was they both got up on the roof, sprayed a hose at the area where there were some concerns about dripping on the front, as you can see in the picture here, the front roof there. It's operating as it should, so they both agreed that was had been fixed the last time by their exterior roofing guy was out there to wrap that up. There was a caulking painting done on an electrical conduit in the temp heater, and then also extending the waterproofing inside the container to the KOH tank. So that's all been completed. And then we did receive a letter from Hayes Pump. The only other outstanding items were for wells 4 and wells 5. 5 has a vibration issue. We decided that it's probably not in the best interest to take 5 offline based on the timing that we're at. And we have a letter from Hayes regarding their honoring of a warranty for that. And I know this has a backup plan anyway. The town has a backup pump. We were obviously hoping that maybe by the end of the summer or so, well 5 replacement well would be already installed. The goal at this point, is, as I mentioned previously, is to have 5 and 6 replacement wells hopefully completed fully by the end of 2021. So,
does it still have the vibration?
It does. The issue would be the lower bowl assembly, and our concern is removing that, and we were given an estimate that's roughly 5 days, if not longer, to take that offline.
Is that the one with the bowl issue that we had before? I know we had to put a smaller size diameter pipe down there. It was one of the pumps. It was back when the other regime was in.
We had an issue at 6 that we had to install.
Okay, I wasn't sure which one it was. I know there was one of them. Yeah.
Now 5, unfortunately, was a very good well. It's plugging up from the gravel pack, and then this is just one more.
Okay.
There's a lot of concerns with 5. It's not, you can't clean it again. It's on flat leg. We have some concerns with pulling it and possibly damaging it while we're pulling it. So, I think the path of least resistance would be to leave it in, and it's functioning. It's just not as optimal as we'd like. It didn't pass the vibration. It got better when they made some adjustments, but it's not at an acceptable level that we would if it were a grain and compass itself. So it's functional. It's just the question is, would it last 5-10 years? Probably not. So it's something that over the winter we would fix, but again, we're going to have a new replacement well, and the concern is we're getting into the summer months, and what we're going to do. We had 3 offline, so there was nothing we really wanted to do at that time to even touch 5. 4, we're just deciding that at this point we're going to have to pull that when the well gets cleaned. And depending on if when that pump goes out for testing, if it actually passes and it might just be simple restrictions, we're going with a different pump to replace it with while that pump gets pulled and sent to the factory to get tested. And I don't know what the final cost is, for about $3,000 or something like that to put a brand new pump in. That'll have a 2-stage and it'll be a little bit more adjustable, and you can kind of fiddle with it a little bit better to compensate for kind of pumping into the system. And we're just not 100% sure what the problem is with the current pump that was installed. And so if it is an issue, you'll get the cost back. We'll fight with these on reimbursement for that cost for installation of that pump. If not, it's something within the piping network within that 30 feet or so. We are reusing that station, so it is a little bit unclear. So we do have a letter on that. There's a couple little fine-tune items that I'd like to clarify on that letter to make it a little bit more clear that it is a warranty issue. These are not part of the original punch list. This is kind of on the punch list as items that they need to have addressed. So we want to kind of have it guaranteeing that they're going to honor that warranty because our substantial completion date was April of last year. So we're approaching that 1-year mark. And we'd like them to extend that, knowing that there's issues with those. So that honestly is the wrapping up of the project. We did receive a final closeout pay estimate. Obviously, that was last week, and I hadn't had all my documentation yet. So once we clarify that, and we have the letter that we want to see in, we'll post them back to the commission, make sure you have copies of it as well. But once that's successful, we're comfortable with closing this project out. With recycle tank passing and all the documentation in order at this point. Assuming we did pass the plan section, if you will. So.
In your experience, if the tank passes, does it hold, the recycle tank pass, does it hold water, if it's good for a year, is it good for 10, or like are there problems happening in 3 years?
I mean, I can't predict the issues. The one, they did find a fine little nail hole that basically they injected and about 4 or 6 inches in and really hit that one heavy. They did fully coat it. They're at the point where they probably did not need to do that. So you do have an extra coating in there that probably didn't need to be done.
Yep.
That was up to them to use the methods to try to figure out how.
I would agree they should have done that a year ago.
Yep. Unfortunately, so they did that investigation with the green dye. Right. They found a couple of spots, and then they went back in and filled up a couple others. So I think it's something that I can say, it should last. The coating that they put in there is something that easily would last 5 years.
Right.
And they did the double coating, so you will see the fading of the outer coat.
Right.
Compared to the inner. We did decide to go with the 2 different colors that delay a little bit with the installation, but better for you guys in the future for maintenance purposes.
Oh, cool.
These are recycle tanks, so you are putting sludge in them.
Sure. It may be okay. And I don't want to incur extra money for a warranty that we may never use. You know what I mean? We all know that warranties aren't worth much anyway.
Yeah.
But if you can extend their construction 1 year from on that tank and whatever appurtenances that are attached, that would be really cool.
Yeah, and they have been using the pumps at least for getting water in and out of there. So the pumps have been at least exercised a little bit and used over the course of last year, but not to the full extent of pumping to the residual.
Right, no, it hasn't been.
I think the 1 year, I agree, and added cost, it's one of those things where, I'm not sure what quote they would give us for that.
Right.
The extended warranty.
No, I can feel it.
But
it would be a lot, just like every other extended warranty, and then they're gonna prorate it, right? So you're gonna get Lloyd's of London beat you up at year 4.
So I think, and we had talked about, if you did want to quote that yourselves with an added code, it's something that could be manually done.
And then we'll continually get those calls every night.
But at the bare minimum, you want the year.
Then we want the year, and I think our money would be better spent in messing with the tank if, in fact, it does leak after 5 years. Good. That's very good news. I'm very happy about that. I guess I was losing sleep. I was like, you're never gonna get this. You're just not gonna get this.
6 times the charm? I don't know.
Yep. Hey, no.
We got there, and a little later than in December 2020 that I was hoping for, the Christmas present early, but hey, it's just March.
Hey, no, it's done. Springtime, all that stuff.
St. Patrick's Day conversation I had, and I was happy with that, and continue with 8 more hours of meetings, but, so good news, the treatment plant project is very close to closeout. And just need to go through a tiny bit more scrutiny and go through the conservation closeout, but we're there, and, yeah, that was good news to see.
Very nice.
And honestly, that's how I'm gonna end that. I don't have any other, items to update on, so.
Cool.
Treatment plan.
Good.
I did neglect in our discussion about the Mansfield water main extensions that Mansfield, in our conversation, in my conversation with Leah and Nara, we agreed that there should be an MOA regarding the payment of the bills, which will be to Norton's water department, and a method by which Norton can attach the Mansfield residents. I think it's Mansfield. Norton notifies the town of Mansfield about a resident's non-payment of water, and then Mansfield liens the property, and then the money comes to Norton from Mansfield. It's a little roundabout, but we need to get that groundwork done prior to an extension. It's all part of the MOA.
Yep, that's a good idea. Yep.
That Frank will work out with Lydia. Best of luck, Mike.
Before I retire.
This is when you get your senior Boy Scout badge. You already had it, but this is going to be all the way. But hey, we got the water. Don't let them break ground until you get what you want. And not that I think people over there won't pay, but it's a nice. I don't know whether we pre-lien it. You know, you go in, open up a lien. I don't know if you can, but municipalities can't do that.
Right now, we have one existing Mansfield resident that owes us a lot of money.
Yep. Well, this might encompass that. If we make this MOA to be any, if you could just make sure the word any is in the Mansfield water resident, and not just specifically those 3, 4 roads, whatever the hell it is, that would be a real game changer.
The name of them, say all future.
Yep. Any and all future, you got it. I read it somewhere too, I don't know. It's alright. But on that note, I think, all we have left to do is make one more meeting for April 6th. How do you feel about that? Everybody all right with 6th?
Yep.
Let's do that, and then
Same time, same place?
let's do that.
Or you want to do it outside? It doesn't matter.
Gentlemen, this is Victoria. I have a question. Are we still doing 6 o'clock in 2 weeks?
Sounds good. It'll be nice and light at 6 o'clock.
Okay. All right. I just didn't want to come in early. All right.
Motion to adjourn, Mr.
Motion to adjourn, sir.
I'll second that. Thank you, everyone.
I'm not going to.
Average tickets are like $800.
What?
It's $500 for the bleachers, right?
For what?
12,000 people.
Huh?
This session is no longer being recorded.